The Little Patriot of Padua, the monkey story. I will not be a cowardly soldier, no, but I should be much more willing to go to school if the master would tell us a story every day, like the one he told us this morning. Every month, said he, I shall tell you one. I shall give it to you in writing, and it will always be the tale of a fine and noble deed performed by a boy. This one is called The Little Patriot of Padua, and here it is. A French steamer set out from Barcelona, a city in Spain, for Genoa. There were on board Frenchmen, Italians, Spaniards, and Swiss. Among the rest was a lad of 11, poorly clad and alone, who always held himself aloof like a wild animal and stared at all with gloomy eyes. He had good reasons for looking at everyone with forbidding eyes. 2 years previous to this time, his parents, peasants in the neighborhood of Padua, had sold him to a company of mountebanks, who, after they had taught him how to perform tricks, by dint of blows and kicks and starving, had carried him all over France and Spain, beating him continually and never giving him enough to eat. On his arrival in Barcelona, being no longer able to endure ill treatment and hunger, and being reduced to a pitiable condition, he had fled from his slave master and had betaken himself for protection to the Italian consul, who, moved with compassion, had placed him on board of the steamer and had given him a letter to the treasurer of Genoa, who was to send the boy back to his parents, to the parents who had sold him like a beast. The poor lad was lacerated and weak. He had been assigned to the second-class cabin. Everyone stared at him, some questioned him, but he made no reply and seemed to hate and despise everyone. To such an extent had privation and affliction saddened and irritated him. Nevertheless, 3 travelers, by dint of persisting in their questions, succeeded in making him unloose his tongue, and in a few rough words, a mixture of Venetian, French, and Spanish, he related his story. These 3 travelers were not Italians, but they understood him, and partly out of compassion, partly because they were excited with wine, they gave him soldi, jesting with him and urging him on to tell them one another thing. Böggi's note. Soldi is cash, change, coins. And as several ladies entered the saloon at the moment, they gave him some more money for the purpose of making a show and cried, take these too. And they made the money rattle on the table. The boy pocketed it all, thanking them in a low voice, with his surly mien, but with a look that was for the first time smiling and affectionate. Then he climbed into his berth, drew the curtain, and lay quiet, thinking over his affairs. With this money, he would be able to purchase some food on the board, after having suffered for lack of bread for 2 years. He could buy a jacket as soon as he landed in Genoa, after having gone about clad in rags for 2 years, and he could also, by carrying it home, ensure for himself from his father and mother a more humane reception than would have fallen to him his lot if he had arrived with empty pockets. This money was a little fortune for him, and he was taking comfort out of this thought behind the curtain of his berth, while the three travelers chatted away as they sat round the dining table in the second-class saloon. They were drinking and discussing their travels and the countries which they had seen, and from one topic to another they began to discuss Italy. One of them began to complain of the inns, another of the railways, and then, growing warmer, they all began to speak evil of everything. One more had preferred a trip to Lapland, another declared that he had found nothing but swindlers and brigands in Italy. The third said that Italian officials do not know how to read. "It's an ignorant nation," repeated the first. "Filthy nations," added the second. Exclaimed the third, meaning to say robbers, but he was not allowed to finish the word. A tempest of soldi and half-lire descended upon their heads and shoulders, and leaped upon the table and the floor with a demoniac noise. All three sprung up in a rage, looked up, and received another handful of coppers in their faces. "Take back your soldi," said the lad disdainfully, thrusting his head between the curtains of his berth. "I do not accept alms from those who insult my country."